Today I want to talk to you about this 2007 Suzuki Bandit 1250. This bike is new to me, or it's going to be the first season that I'm going to be riding at some long distances, so I've been putting on some accessories that I like to use when I'm riding. None of these accessories are individually hard to put on, quite simple, and I'm sure all of you have figured all of this out or some of it out before, but what I wanted to share with you are some of the solutions that I've come up with that work for me. It did take me some time to find some of the sensors, wires, and mounting places for some of these things, so I thought I would just give you an idea of, like I say, what I came up with. There's a million solutions for many of these things, but what I've got is an action camera, a GoPro camera on a Suzuki. You've got limited places you can put it. It's got narrow handlebars, and they sit low behind the windscreen. I've got a Garmin Zumo GPS that I've hardwired into here. The Healtech GIpro gear indicator with the timing retard eliminator. 12 o'clock Labs speedometer calibration. A USB charging port which I've mounted on the fairing. An AdMore lighting kit for the Givi bags. And all of these units are on a switched power supply. So in other words, when the bike is shut down, they are shut down. No battery drain. And I have a previous YouTube, which I'll put in the link down below in the comments, which shows you how to put together a switched power supply. There are no extra terminals on the Suzuki's fuse box, so we have to come up with a solution for that, and I'm not going to cover that here, but like I say, I will put the link on how I came up with that wiring harness for that in the comments. So let's get started on this and show you what we've got. So let's talk about the 12 o'clock Labs speedometer calibrator. My particular Suzuki was about 10% off. In other words, when it was reading 80 miles an hour, it was actually going about 72 miles an hour. So this unit will electronically calibrate it. You can adjust it by tenths of a mile, getting down that close. This is the unit itself, and you calibrate it by pushing this button. There's plenty of YouTube videos on how to do it, but this is ultra simple to install here. I've got this unit, so it's up under the seat, so if I wanted to change it, I can do it at any time. So what we'll do is I'll show you how this gets coupled in there and where the fitting is. So the coupling for this is behind the left side cover, and it's a 3-wire coupling, and all you do is split it and you put the 12 o'clock Labs harness in line between it, and it's installed. To calibrate that, you just turn on the bike and follow the instructions. Plenty of stuff on YouTube and in their instructions to do it. Very, very simple on here. But it's going to give you a very accurate speedo reading if yours is off. Like I say, and one way to find out how much you need to calibrate it, you can either use a GPS, or they have these apps that you can download to your iPhone or your Android, which will show you in very large letters how fast you're going, and it gives you a great idea. You can just match it against your speedometer, obviously. Can't get any simpler installation than this. Let's talk about the action camera, or the GoPro camera. One of the challenges you have on the Suzuki is that the handlebars are narrow and the field of vision is behind the windscreen. So there's really no place to mount it there. You can't use a suction cup down here on the fairing because the surface is rough, it won't stick. And on the smooth part of the fairing down here, there's just not enough room for the suction cup itself. So where I'm going to mount this is going to be right here on the rear view mirror arm. Now, I'm going to use the handlebar mount on it, but since this is small, we're going to have to build this up somehow to hold the mount itself, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to use for that. I'm going to use this electrical splicing tape, which is nothing more than rubber itself. This tape will bind or fuse to itself once it's wrapped around there. So I'm going to put a few wraps around the arm here, and that will allow it to use the the GoPro handlebar mounting thing. And the way to use this is you just cut it. So this tape, all you do is you peel the backing off it. There is no adhesive on it, so it's not going to be doing any sticking or leave any residue on it. But you just take it and start wrapping it around the arm, stretching it while you do it. And as you stretch it, the rubber will begin to fuse to itself or vulcanize to itself. And we'll get enough wraps around here that the mounting, handlebar mounting, will be able to grab this. Let me get the GoPro mount. So that should do it. Get it started here. Tighten her up. And that is pretty solid the way that is right there. Okay, got the waterproof mount here. What I'm going to do is, just for grins, put on the safety strap. Probably don't need it, but you know, it came with the camera and it looks kind of cool. So we'll just pop her on there. There we go, the camera's mounted. And as you can see, it's pretty sturdy on there. It's got a full range of motion, back and forth. It's got an unobstructed field of view, and it should be within reach of sitting on the bike to turn it on and off. And I'll take some video at different speeds and everything to see if there's any vibration or anything, and I'll post that along with this. So one of the other items I put on is this USB charging port. Very simple to put in. I use it quite a bit while I'm riding, charging cell phones or if I need to power something. Quick and easy to get to. You can reach it while you're riding. It's weather resistant. I wouldn't exactly, I've never had any problem with it. I've got one of these on my on one of my other bikes as well. You can get these handlebar mounted as well, but like I say, there's just not a lot of room on these Suzuki handlebars on Bandits. They're just so narrow. To install it, a 1 1/8 inch hole drill. I bought a bit at Home Depot. Put 14 gauge wires on there. I know it's probably overkill, but I'm an overkill type guy, and just ran the wire and put the wires in some heat shrink tubing, about a 4-foot piece, and ran it to the back of the bike under the seat and hooked it up to the power supply. I'll show you later how it was routed with the other wires, but what's nice about this too is when it's on, it glows blue, and when it's off, and which is nice, but great to have. This is Healtech's gear position indicator. It's got this ATRE with it, the Advanced Timing Retard Eliminator. Basically, what it is a gear position indicator. It just shows you instantaneously what gear you're in. I like these things so much. I've had one on a Honda VTX, which is sitting here next to me for the last 3 or 4 years. I just find them invaluable. I like the easy ride. I know there's purists, you know, what the heck do you need one for? I use this thing a lot. I'm in for the long rides and the looking at scenery type things, and it's just always nice instantaneously know what status you're in, what gear you're in. The Advanced Timing Retard Eliminator, you know, I've got it set up to their specifications. I'll be honest, I don't notice any difference on it. I just might return it to factory specs on here. You read some of the forums and stuff, people swear by it, but I just haven't noticed any big difference on it. So anyway, very easy to install. It comes with the harness. It's bike specific. I'll show you how it gets hooked up and how I've got it routed here. I've just taken the cable for the gear indicator and snaked it down through the front fork, all the wires down there, and just put it against the wire cables coming down here and zip tied it to keep it nice and neat. And then down on this end here, just pushed it down in between the frame cross member here to where the coupler is for the speed sensor unit on the bike. I'll show you where that goes in down here, but What we need to do is to locate the harness for the gear position indicator. I'll have to admit it took me a while to find this, but it's right here behind the fuse box. So easiest thing to do obviously is to take off the fuse box, and I'll show you where it's at. Just pull the fuse box out, and there's a coupler in here. This is the line from the GIpro, the gear position indicator. And what it is a 3-position coupler. You just split it and you put the GIpro's harness in line with it, which it is here, okay? Very simple. It just comes apart, put the harness in, excuse me, and you're done there. There's one more line that needs to be set up, and that's this black line here, which comes in. And all this is a power line, and this needs to go to a switched 12-volt power. Now the instructions offer a line that you can tap into off the diagnostics coupler on the right side of the box, but what I've done is chosen to set it up with a into my switched and fused power supply. I mentioned that earlier, and the link on how to put that together is down below in the comments. This is the power supply, switched and fused power supply that I put together earlier, and I'll show you how that's hooked up here for this. So basically you put this in here, you've got to zip tie the excess cord up, stuff it back in here, the fuse box goes back in, bolt it up, and you're basically done. This is the black wire from the gear position indicator harness, the power line I was talking to you about. I just put a fitting on there and into a power source off the wiring harness here. And the installation for the gear position indicator is complete. So this is the harness for the AdMore lighting kit. These are the plugs that go into each bag, and as you can see, I've just kind of laid it out here underneath. On a Suzuki, the helmet lock is a great place to run these wires out. You don't have to violate any integrity of the bike or the fairing to get it out. This works pretty good because the seat will come down and let this run free on here. As far as the harness itself, or hooking it into the tail lights and everything, all of the wires that you need are in this nest here underneath the rear cowling. And no great trick to it. You just you've got your brake light, you've got tail light, you've got right turn signal, left turn signal, and the on-off power. Now the power switch, what comes with turning the bike on and off is I hooked it into the tail light. You can also use the license plate light, but I use the tail light, and that's hooked in right here. For the Suzuki, it's the brown wire. This white wire I also plugged into there. I don't usually like tapping into two lines, but since this is such low voltage, I'm not worried about it. This is hooked up to the wiring, powered wiring harness. This goes to the relay. This is what turns the relay on and off when the bike goes on and off. So that's what allows to run all the accessories and to power on only with the ignition on here. So as you can see, they provide these posi-tap units, which are just very easy to put in. And the trick is just finding out which wires go where. And if you've got a wiring diagram, easy enough to follow. But just take that, I'll tuck that back up underneath here as we go. So I just wanted to show you this with the AdMore lighting kit. This is inside one of the Givi bags. And what I did is I took some black caulking just to keep the wires flat against the case. The AdMore kit, for what you pay for, it doesn't give you much. So I just took some caulking, like I say, and put it around here in the corners to keep the wires. I've got the same on the upper case here. I don't know if you can see. But did the same as it goes out. And that way any equipment that you've got in a bag isn't going to get caught on the wires or vice versa on here. And what's good about the silicone is it's not permanent. It'll peel right off if you don't like it or need to redo it, and very inexpensive. But I couldn't come up with a better way. Nothing else was sticking. They give you a few wire clips to put on there, but it's pretty lame in my opinion. Next, what I'm going to put on, and this again is not rocket surgery, but it's just getting the power source, a switched power source to the GPS. I've got a Garmin Zumo here. I've already put on the RAM mount where I'm going to put it. And this is the cradle that Garmin provides on this, and this is the wiring harness for the cradle. Got a lot of stuff on here, most of which I'm not going to use. Three cables are not going to use. You've got a headset, a microphone, and a traffic line here. The traffic line you can't even use on a motorcycle. You can use it when you've got it in your car. And I'm not going to use the helmet headset and everything else. It's got MP3 capabilities and all that, but I'm just going to coil that up and stuff it. The part that we will use is the power and the ground. And that's basically all you need to do to get this thing hardwired into the back. And I'll show you how I'm just going to wire that up back there with a switched and fused wiring harness on here. So what I will do is I'm going to mount the RAM mount on here just to give me an idea on the length of the cable and where it needs to be, and start snaking that cable down as we go through here, just to give me an idea of how much I'm going to need. So just to show how I've got this wiring put in here, I've got 3 cables coming in. I've got the GPS, got the GIpro gear indicator, and then I've got the USB charger. All right, it's all coming in from up front, and obviously the green zip ties are where I've put it in and tidied it up. So to finish off the wiring for the GPS, this is the wiring harness that came out, and as you can see, I just took all the excess here, zip tied it up and stuffed it down in here along with everything else on there. The power I've routed to the wiring harness here. Okay, and I've got all my grounds or negative terminals stacked up here on this bracket. So, and wiring for the GPS is complete as well. As you can see here, this is pretty much everything that's installed so far, and how I've tucked it up under the wires and everything. You want to make it as neat as you can. Last thing you want is wires getting caught or flopping around. Obviously all of the green ties are my way of just trying to keep this neat and clean. I've got the calibrator unit for the speedometer. One thing I have in here, which I would recommend putting on, and I'm sure most of you do, is the battery tender, which also, if you're working, you can also keep it on under the seat and let it hang out. These are nice too if you're on a trip. You can get the USB charger, which tucks up under there. And you can run the charger into your bag or something like that if you've got an iPad or something like that that you want to charge while you're riding. So that's about it for the wiring, and we're good to go. So to show how these things are set up on here, we've got obviously the GPS, the gear indicator, and the USB charging port. And as you can see, everything's shut down on here. The minute we turn on the switch, everything's powering up. The Garmin's powering up. The GIpro, let me turn on the switch, is powered up, and the USB port lights up when it's on. So switch on, everything's on, switch off, everything goes off. Same thing with the AdMore lighting kit. Got the switch on. As you can see, it comes on with the tail light. Turn signals. Flashers. And then the brakes. Well, I think we're good to go. The camera seems rock steady. GPS, everything's working. Brake lights, turn signals, on-off switches. I think we're good to go on this. So I hope this was helpful. Hope it gave you some ideas on how to mount some of these things and take away some of the angst. It's a little early to have a Scotch right now, but I certainly will have one later. So appreciate the time today, folks, and ride safe out there. Take care.